Hello and welcome to Off the Brawl on Off the Ball, the show which brings you all the headline news and views from around the world of combat sports. I'm joined in studio as ever by Phil Egan and Simon Maguire. Simon, Phil, what's the crack?
Oh good, are you alright? Like you sound like
I'm not going to lie, lads.
A bit under the weather, Ronan, yeah?
A bit under the weather. People were texting in last night. I was on the big show last night. People were texting in, does this guy have boxing fever? I don't know if I have boxing fever or if I'm just actually under the weather. But yeah, not feeling the best. But a bit like Audley Harrison against Michael Spratt that time. I'm just gonna hang in there and see
AJ.
Can I pull out a knockout? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, AJ against Povetkin apparently had the flu.
Yeah. Well,
and then if you get your nose smashed up in a round as well, that's not going to...
It was a little bit after the fact. Apparently he said as soon as Eddie Hearn got into the ring, as is his wont, AJ apparently said to him, I've been sick for the last 8 weeks or something like that, so I'm not sure. One man who does not have boxing fever is HBO's Peter Nelson. He's decided to pull the plug on 45 years of boxing history. This 37-year-old hotshot has just come in and said...
Watch out for those 37-year-olds.
Tell you what, Phil, I don't know, is it like a third life crisis? What's the story?
I don't know, it's sad though.
It is.
But it's not really that unexpected though.
No. So 2018 will mark the end of HBO's reign at the top of boxing broadcasting. We'll chat about that later on. We'll also delve a little deeper into the Wilder Fury hijinks as the heavyweight giants take their show on the road this week in preparation for a December 1st bout at the Staples Centre. Before all that, we turn to events last Friday night as things got a bit rowdy in Saudi.
Super-Middleweight champion, and it is Callum Smith from Liverpool who has taken the title with a dramatic, emphatic 7th round knockout, deposing the now former champion George Groves.
The gravelly tones of Ronald McIntosh calling the closing exchanges of Smith Groves in Jeddah. What a commentator, Phil. Ronald McIntosh.
Yeah, he could tell when he sensed
man for the big occasion.
Groves was in trouble. He upped his pace and his energy. He knew. I mean, who knew that George Groves would be troubled by a body shot? Who knew?
And with that, we turn to Mystic Mag. I called him on fire last week. He's certainly on fire over the weekend there. He picked George Groves to lose via body shot, and it came to pass. Simon, boast.
Well, I mean, like, even a broken clock is right twice a day, you know?
No. You're being far too modest. He came in here on Saturday. Now he just strut about him.
Look at him being all humble here. He was giving it the big one over the weekend.
Yeah, he was. He walked in here on Saturday and he was like, "Oh, Phil, did you see that Smith knockout win there over Groves? See how he finished it?" I was like, "I did, sure."
I'd like to put a disclaimer though. I had Rory McDonald to beat Geiger Mousasi in Bellator on points, and he got beaten by TKO.
That's MMA talk.
I know. Peppa Pig was on apparently instead. Did you hear about that?
Channel 5 got the priority straight. For those who missed it, Phil, what happened there?
People obviously stayed up to watch the fight.
As you do.
They ran over. So then Channel 5 just cut the feed and went into Peppa Pig.
Presumably the head of programming at Channel 5 made a decision. It's like, am I going to show Bellator Peppa Pig?
A lot of kids up now. Let's watch Peppa Pig. It's happened to me before with fights. I would get up and watch most fights live, but sometimes you're just looking at it going, you know what, I'm going to record it and I'll watch it the next morning. I think it was one of Frampton's fights actually I watched back as live the next morning, and it cut the last 4 rounds of me.
So, like, to be safe, you just record the programme after?
Yeah, I've learned the hard way.
Yeah, I always forget that as well.
Yeah.
I've
never watched Peppa Pig now.
Yeah.
No, but switching from Peppa Pig to Jeddah, where things were it was a pretty eventful card. Like, the crowd, as we flagged up ahead of time, was a bit kind of... It was a bit when the NFL came to London. They weren't sure when to be cheering and that kind of stuff. It wasn't the most educated fight crowd I've ever seen. It was a very good fight. It was one of those... It was a high-level boxing match rather than an out-and-out brawl. And you couldn't take your eyes off it because 2 big punchers who could end the show at one shot. Groves...
Do you think the shoulder was an issue?
Well, he says not. He says not.
And because if he did say it was, maybe he just looked like a bad loser. Maybe only George Groves knows if the shoulder was an issue. But I just wonder, was it maybe in the back of his mind?
But I think it's fascinating, really, because at the Eubank Groves fight, Eubank was almost drowned by Groves' size. Like the size disparity in that fight was so apparent, and yet in this fight, just a couple of months later, Groves is being dwarfed by Callum Smith.
Yeah, I couldn't believe the size difference. I was looking at it and going, that can't be right. How did Smith make weight, or was Groves a couple of pounds under?
Yeah.
I mean, Smith was huge compared to him.
Yeah, and like that was kind of my reservation last week. I was saying, because he hasn't had a big fight in such a long time, that is he still making this weight comfortably? But as Phil pointed out last week, he was sporting an 8-pack heading into that fight.
An 8-pack.
Yeah.
Great cheese off that thing.
I know, I was looking at Smith fighting. And I couldn't. I was like, he reminds me of somebody, and it took me ages. I was like, he looks like Andy Lee. Tall, lean, jab, and then even the way he was fighting was like, wait. And then when he saw us open, he went straight in and went for it, you know?
Yeah.
And what a performance. I think you need to tip your hat to George Groves as well. What a career he's had. I hope that isn't his last fight. I'd like to see him go back to the UK and maybe fight James DeGale again.
Yeah, there's a few fights there.
Yeah, we'll get into Groves now in a couple of minutes, but just to focus on Smith, because I'm at that point in my life now where I've watched fighters from the debut to world titles. Normally I'm, like earlier in my life, I was kind of jumping on the bandwagon midway through, but I've actually watched Callum Smith from his first fight on Sky through, and it was apparent from the get-go, this guy's got the lot.
Yeah.
Do you know? And like it's kind of we said it to Barry Jones last week, he was probably ready 2 years ago. Like it's 3 years since he blew Rocky Fielding away in that civil war in Liverpool, which was billed as like these two great white hopes for Liverpool, like on equal footing, and Smith just was a class or two above. And Rocky has since won a world title. Like Rocky beat him to the world title. So it just shows you that Callum has finally come of age, and maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe they planned this right all along.
He's 28, and the encouraging thing is this was his biggest fight on the biggest stage, and he delivered.
Unbelievable composure.
It was almost the perfect performance, and he had Groves in trouble a few times before he got the stoppage in the 7th round. So even when you were watching the fight, you kind of felt, yeah, Smith is going to end this before the 12 rounds.
And now he joins Joe Calzaghe and Andre Ward as undefeated, unified Super-Middleweight champions. When
our friend Ronald was making that point during the commentary, I was waiting for the caveat or the add-on, but this is it. Like he's in the most elite of company there, and it's whether he's long for that division. It's not exactly the most lucrative division.
Yeah, like what could he do next? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they try and do a rematch with Rocky Fielding. Yeah. Where do they put it in Anfield?
Anfield just a couple of weeks ago got their licence for non-football
that's
events.
Anfield.
Well, they've got a few, like David Price, as much as he's maligned. He's got a big fan base. So
he does, but God love him.
You add all that up. Rocky brings his own crowd. And, there's enough to be getting on with there to actually put on, maybe not a full Anfield, but a reasonably big crowd.
League Cup.
A League Cup.
They had a good crowd against Chelsea last week in the League Cup.
But a bit like the 154 division, when Andy was in talking about Kell Brook a couple of weeks ago, he was like, that division's all killer, no filler, but there's not that much money to be made. Like, you can see at 168, James DeGale, who we'll get on to in a few minutes, vacated his IBF title because he wanted to avoid his mandatory Uzkatskai, who not many would have heard of, but it just shows you the danger in that division that, there's people slipping under the radar, and like Callum might be best served going to light heavy, and again, there's not a huge amount of big money to be made there. So as you said, maybe Rocky is the best course of action to get the big bucks.
Like he made a nice sum on Friday night for himself, and he obviously walked home. He was just as well to get all his brothers to carry all the belts and the trophy, because I saw him coming back when he arrived back in the airport, and he would have had to probably check in a few extra bags and all that stuff. But he obviously, if he fought Rocky Fielding again, he pretty much knows he's going to win.
Yeah.
It doesn't strike me as somebody that would ever look past somebody. He'd treat Rocky Fielding as he did in the first fight. He'd treat him with the respect. He'd get the job done, but he could make that might be a nice payday for him and a chance to fight in Liverpool. But that is like, what is next for him? Yeah.
Well, as Simon touched on, like light heavyweight's natural, but even cruiserweight, you wouldn't rule it out. Like at 6'3", he's got so much filling out to do, such a slim frame. So we'll see. He's just such an elite talent that hopefully the fights materialise that will get him the credit he deserves, because he could be a pound for pound top 10 talent. It's just he needs the fights and the combatants to sort of prove that. One point before we get on to Groves, like Joe Gallagher gets a lot of stick, but he had the game plan spot on this time, and people are always quick to criticise him when he gets it wrong, like when he sent Scott Quigg out to box Carl Frampton. Like, people were all over him, so we should probably give Joe Gallagher a bit of credit for it.
Absolutely, yeah, and he had tears in his eyes when he won. It was great to see, but I wonder, he's a fairly quiet lad, Callum Smith?
Yeah.
Is that why he's had to wait so long, because he's not putting himself
not calling
out there?
people out,
Yeah.
That could be it, alright. He's just been unfortunate, like this. He was supposed to fight Durrell for the WBC. There was a bit of politics there, unsurprisingly, and eventually that fell through, so he went into this tournament, fought 2-0 fights, really, as it turned out.
Yeah.
But he got the big one, and it was the best possible way, short of fighting in London or Liverpool. It was the best opponent, best way to win, and what a dramatic finish as well.
What do you think of the production of it all, fighting in Saudi Arabia?
I don't know.
Jeddah for the cheddar.
I don't know what it does for the sport, really, fighting out there. Look, if they're sponsoring the event and the guys are getting paid, well, fair play to them. But like, that fight really should have taken place in the UK.
Yeah.
It would have been a raucous atmosphere.
Yeah, because we're in this tournament format, so Callis Ireland is the promoter of this event, but he's not a promoter of any of the individual fighters per se. So all he wants to do, for his own purposes and for the purposes of the World Boxing Super Series, is get as much money into the pot as possible. He doesn't really care about the future endeavours of a Callum Smith or a George Groves.
Yeah.
So if this was Eddie Hearn putting on the show, there's no chance he's taking it to Jeddah, because he's building brand Smith. It's like, we have to, even if we're getting less money at the gate, we'll make it back in the long term, you know, by bringing it to the XL Arena in London or something. So that was the logic behind it. It's a shame, but like, I think Callum has enough time on his side to make amends.
Did you enjoy Prince Nassim's appearance in the ring before the fight?
Oh, Prince Nas. He's like the best buddy of this World Boxing Super Series.
Yeah,
he's been in all of the fights.
Yeah, Evander Holyfield was there as well.
Yeah, he didn't look overly pumped, no, I have to say.
No, I don't think so. I think Nas enjoyed it more than he did.
Yeah. And for Groves, like we mentioned last week, that I thought the Badu Jack fight was a watershed in the wrong sense of the word. I thought that he came up short in such a meek fashion that was so unlike him, to just sort of, you know, he just kind of faded under the lights a little bit. But he came roaring back under Shane McGuigan, and as you said last week, Phil, it's bonus territory for him now, and he won his world title. Like, he should just be chasing paydays at this stage. A James DeGale fight makes all the sense in the world. A Eubank Jr. rematch, if there's any appetite for that.
Well, they're talking to Eubank Jr. against DeGale.
Yeah.
DeGale obviously fought over the weekend, which went so far under the radar because it wasn't the most inspiring fight, or the opponent he was fighting. Like, there was no chance he was losing.
I'm a big fan of James DeGale, and as I said earlier, like, I watched him from the Olympics until now, and I do feel he's underachieved a little bit. Like, whether he has I don't know, whether he lives the life in the way other fighters do when he's not active, I'm not sure, but he probably could have done more. Like, 2-time world champion, Olympic gold medalist, sounds a bit facetious to say it, but like, he is a 2-time champion because he lost to Caleb Truax, who's basically a journeyman. Yeah. 168
and
pound.
He probably lost to him twice, to be honest. Like, the second one, he was given the decision, but that was debatable. Yeah,
and the Truax thing is kind of played into his opponent at the weekend, who was by all accounts just a blown up welterweight. They couldn't trust him to have a takeover against even a journeyman super-middleweight, because, you know, he could blow up this potential fight with Eubank in December.
Well, there's a bit of needle there with DeGale and Eubank, because I think Eubank came in to do a bit of sparring with DeGale a couple of years ago, and then afterwards Eubank tweeted out, easy work, just outclassed an Olympian in the ring, and DeGale wasn't too pleased at all. So that is definitely going to get brought up when this fight is made. I think it will be made, and it's going to be like, whoever loses is really out of the equation. This is a winner takes all kind of in the division. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be a great fight if they make it.
Probably more so DeGale, though. If he loses, that could be the end of him. Eubank, I mean, people would write off his credentials. Some people already have. But if he lost, he's still young enough that he'd probably still put himself try and get himself back into a position to have another decent fight. But maybe this is the kind of fight DeGale needs. You know, something to really focus on. Yeah. Maybe then the winner of that could fight George Groves. DeGale Groves, I remember watching that fight, and I actually thought DeGale won.
Me too, actually, yeah. It's a while since I've watched it.
I was up for Groves, and even with that, I think DeGale won that one.
that was a total, and it seems like DeGale, Groves took his mojo that night, like as much as anything. It took DeGale. DeGale needed more than anything an immediate rematch to sort of set the record straight there, and he never got it.
Yeah, hence he had to go off and kind of, he had to fight overseas more.
Yeah,
but when he beat Durrell, then he beat Bute.
Like his best performance, in my opinion, was against Brandon Gonzalez on the Froch Groves undercard. He knocked him out, and then beat Durrell in the next fight, and he was primed to be a pay-per-view star in Britain, and then Al Heyman came knocking and said, come to America, I've got big money. And he kind of left it all behind. He's made some poor decisions, and as much as the talent was there, he probably could have eked out a little bit more.
When Al Heyman comes knocking, not many people turn him down.
No.
You know?
Problem as well is he's been in a lot of wars as well. Like all his fights tend to go the distance, and there's some real grueling fights there, so just wondering if it's all caught up with him.
He has been beset by injuries as well, and there's been promotional stuff with McKenzie among others, so like it's not all his...
Yeah, no, and I'd be a fan of him. Like,
yeah, me too.
I know there's that connection between him and Darren Sutherland as well, and I definitely would like to see James DeGale back in against someone like Eubank Jr. and looking like the DeGale of a few years ago.
Well, as the lads mentioned there, it seems like DeGale is likely on a collision course with long-time social media sparring partner Chris Eubank Jr. The latter bounced back from that lopsided defeat to Groves with a routine win over our own JJ McDonough, who retired with a shoulder injury heading into the fourth. Suffice to say, though, JJ wasn't overly enamoured by Junior's post-fight remarks.
I was starting to land at will. He was starting to feel my power, and it's not the first time it's happened. But at the end of the day, it's a win. It's a win. I'm back to my winning ways, and now we're looking for a big fight at the end of the year.
Well, just stay there for a minute. JJ, just come in, because Chris has said there. He said that he feels you were finding they're going too tough.
No, if I thought the tough was gone, or if I just come in just for a payday to fight him, I wouldn't get up off the ground. I wouldn't say this in front of all the world. On my kid's life, I never did no sparring, only with my brother. I had a bad shoulder injury. I took the fight. I knew he was a great boxer. Pleasure to share the ring with him. No one is tough enough for me to finish off a fight. If I was able to fight on, I would fight on. Sorry for that. I got no sparring. People that know if I'm telling lies, they'd be watching now. If I did spar anyone, I wouldn't swear on my kid's life from that.
What happened then with the shot?
I hurt my shoulder through the second round. I couldn't use it anymore. Why wait for a bit and a half then off him? This is my good arm to fight with. Your job to keep him off. From there on, he was going to destroy me then, wasn't he? No point holding up for a beating, is there?
Thank you for clearing that up, Chris.
With fighters, your shoulder's bad, I understand, but you got to pull through these things. That's the only way you're going to make it in the game.
Not if there's another 7 rounds left. I'd like to see you, if you had a sore shoulder in the first round as bad as mine, would you finish off in 7 rounds with me? Maybe I look
in my second professional fight, I fought with one arm for the entire fight. That's how much I wanted to.
Yeah, that's why. Do you know who he fought? A journeyman that he could beat with no hands. So it's a difference in this level of boxing, fighting with a bad shoulder. Listen, I don't get arrogant, right?
We're not here
because I know one bit afraid of you. Anytime.
Guys, let's not have the fight again a second time.
One hand.
Let's not have the fight a second time, guys, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
There you go, lads. Who would win a straightener between JJ and Chris Eubank?
JJ wins that, I'd say.
Any day of the week. Any day of the week, yeah.
Yeah, well, Eubank was making the right noises on Friday anyway. It seemed like a suitably bizarre sort of fight, given the bizarre nature of the event. Did you see enough from Eubank to even suggest he's back on track? Or
we didn't really see that. I think that's where the frustration came from Eubank.
Yeah, he didn't.
He never got a chance to basically maybe try out a few things, and if it had gone a few more rounds, he could have done that. But I thought at one stage it was going to. It wasn't the most entertaining.
We were going to see the fight afterwards,
the rematch. Yeah, 4 minutes later.
Post-fight entertainment was better than the actual fight.
Yeah. Oh, listen. He did make some interesting points post-fight that he is looking into a new trainer, and Chris Eubank Senior wasn't in attendance in Jeddah, so maybe he is kind of finally clued in that time is of the essence now. He's 29. He's very much in his athletic prime. Whether his boxing prime will ever actually bear out remains to be seen. Commercially, he's the whole package. Like, he's got everything. His ring walks are incredible. Like, as blasé as that sounds, like when you're in a Chris Eubank event, he really gets the whole crowd one side or the other. And he's like a mini Carl Froch, in my opinion. You know, he's not the most technically proficient, but he's all action, and he could fight 15 rounds easy. If he had Rob McCracken, for example, his whole career, Rob McCracken would have engineered a world title for Chris Eubank at this stage, I think.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? His dad, like, you have that bizarre situation where you're watching a fight and he's got his trainer in his corner telling him to do one thing, and then his dad is telling him to do another thing. And maybe the penny has dropped, but I just wonder then if he does get a bit of success, does his dad then come back in and start calling the shots again?
Well, he had the Adam Booth experiment, which only lasted, like, he fought Spike O'Sullivan with Adam Booth in the corner, and possibly one other fight, I think, against Tony Jetta. And Adam Booth, by all accounts, it was just it was never going to mesh, really. They're two very different personalities, and whether Chris can be dictated to, or whether Chris Eubank Sr. is getting in the way, I don't know. But do you think it's too late for Chris Eubank to turn things around? Junior, that is?
Yeah, it's definitely too late for a senior.
You don't think he can make a comeback?
For Junior, I get it. I think it comes down to the DeGale fight. I mean, there'll be a lot of build up to that. There'll be a lot of social media animosity. It is a fight that will get people excited, and I think he can kind of rebuild his career with a win there. Then again, it's the same for DeGale, as we mentioned earlier, and then there's Groves waiting in the wings then for whoever comes through that. So I think it's an interesting time for that triumvirate in UK boxing.
Yeah, if he stopped DeGale, that would be a statement. And then if he got another shot at Groves, it sounded like Groves definitely isn't done anyway, from what he said after the fight. Yeah.
Like, in my opinion, Eubank Jr. has no business at 168. Like, he should be down at middleweight. He wasn't exactly a big puncher down there at any rate, and he sort of went to 168, you know, because there weren't any fights emerging at 160. So I think his best course of action, if he beats DeGale, perhaps if a world title chance emerges at 168, stay there, but you're not going to throw him in with Callum Smith. Like, if Groves was dwarfing,
he'd get destroyed.
Like, can you imagine what that would look like? So I think his best course of action, with Golovkin leaving the scene at middleweight, and, you know, the middleweight division's opening up a little bit, both on TV and in the ring, that maybe his best course of action would be just to go back to 160. It's not too late.
No, there's some interesting fights down there as well, but I think just going back to the DeGale fight, that's what we want to see, and we can plan it from there. Or they can plan it from there, I should say.
Yeah, and we mentioned Adam Booth there. Someone else who had a bit of experience with him was Billy Joe Saunders, however brief that was. That was only a one-fight venture between the pair, but Billy Joe back in hot water again.
Yeah, we talked about him a few weeks ago. Obviously, he got fined 100,000 for bringing boxing into disrepute, and then we get the news last week. ESPN reported it, of a failed drugs test. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Especially, I know you're going over to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got
a lot of vested interest. Yeah, mine included.
Yeah, and I know Katie Taylor's obviously on the card as well. So
yeah,
the fight's going to go ahead, though.
I think Eddie Hearn has made the point that the event is going ahead, but I think it's important for the reach of the event that Billy Joe is on the posters, because he's the world champion, and it probably loses a bit of its cachet if he's not involved. But I think it's going to come down, to cut a long story short, the oxyliferine supplement that he took is only banned in competition by all accounts, so it'll come down to the Massachusetts Commission to decide whether he's in breach, and in which case they would not sanction the bout, which would in turn lead to the WBO stripping Billy Joe. So I think, as I made the point to Richie last night, that if this was Vegas or New York, they might be more inclined to make an example of Billy Joe, but it's not as if Boston's awash with big fights. It's not as if there's a huge fight coming down the table for them, so they need to take the commission's going to take that money when they're getting it, sort of thing.
Yeah, but what kind of does that say about the sport?
No, it's farcical. But
yes, I mean, like, we're not long after the Canelo and Golovkin rematch and all the controversy surrounding that. As much as we love boxing, there has to be standards.
How can a drug be banned in competition and not out of competition? Is there not a bit of a paradox there? No,
well, WADA make a distinction between the two, like, in terms of potency of the material. Like, there's stuff you might take. Like, the statement released by Team Saunders was, this is a typical nasal spray that you can just buy off the shelves. A few people have been saying, what nasal spray is this? I can't find any nasal spray with oxyliferine, but that's a point for another day.
You could do some of that, maybe.
See, but I'm looking forward to Boston. Hopefully the whole thing doesn't fall apart.
Great city, by the way.
You spent a summer there, didn't you?
I spent a couple of summers there, yeah. It's a great city.
Would you recommend anywhere?
Sports mad. You got to go to Cheers. There used to be a pub there called The Littlest, and it was the smallest pub in Boston, but I think it's closed. And they used to serve packets of Monster Munch and Tato. And the bathroom was an old school janitor's room. Like, it was tiny. It was like much smaller than this studio.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Character though. Character.
Have you ever been, Simon? No.
I have. I was at Conor McGregor versus Dennis Siver at the TD Garden, and the night before was Chicago Bulls against the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
So a good weekend of it.
Amazing, yeah.
And actually, it was the same. New England played. The Patriots beat.
Pick any team here.
The Seahawks.
We believe you. Okay.
In the last minute that weekend as well. Oh no, they hammered the Colts. Sorry, and the Seahawks won later on that day. So no, it was a good weekend of sport.
Yeah, it is. It's mad, sport mad, like so.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. So hopefully we'll have some sort of good content from Boston. I'm not promising anything, but I'll hopefully bring some good stuff back.
Well, on that note, we're trying to get in touch with one of the Serrano sisters as well to get an interview on the show.
If you're watching,
we're trying to get in touch with them ahead of the Katie Taylor fight. So hopefully they'll come through.
Yes, so before we move on, one more piece of housekeeping. Last weekend, everyone's favourite Venezuelan, Jorge Linares, was back in action. He moved up to light welterweight looking for a 4th world title. I just want to make the point that let's not sleep on his fight with Lomachenko as a Fight of the Year candidate, because there's just so much happening that people might forget that was like just an incredible fight. So I think Loma's back in action in December.
Yeah, he was doing the rounds. He was on Sky there.
Yeah. His English has come on a lot.
Yeah, he's class.
He's a magician.
Yeah, I think we've talked about him before, where the only worry from getting beaten now is if he goes up too many weights.
I think him against Callum Smith might be a bit too far.
Yeah, but there's talk of the Mikey Garcia.
Yeah, that's a perfect sort of balance where Mikey's weight and skill. Like Mikey's no chump, but that would offset nicely, and that would be a good competitive match. I think Mikey wants to fight Errol Spence, which. Yeah. It's kind of the same paradigm in the opposite sense, where Mikey's the one moving up to face Spence. So it's interesting times. I think, as you said, Lomachenko, Mikey Garcia is what all boxing fans want to see, I think.
Well, we're talking about quality boxers. Is there any word on Keith Thurman coming back? Or is he out injured?
Keith Thurman has just been beset by injuries, yeah. Like, a lot of people would still consider him the best of the bunch at 147, but he's just been so plagued by injuries, and whether he still has the hunger to give it another go, like, he's beaten everyone bar Spence, really. Like, he's the cream of the crop there, but no, he should be back, but whether it'll be the same Keith Thurman remains to be seen, So anyway, it's just over 8 weeks to go until Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury go toe-to-toe in Los Angeles, and anticipation is already at fever pitch. We're taking the brave decision of recording this podcast before they go to New York and Los Angeles, so God knows what's going to happen in those as well. But I think we got the general gist in London on Monday.
I want to feel the power. I'm going to show you the fool. You're going to feel the fury. You're not going to feel no power. I'm going to show you. Come on. You ain't ready for me, and you never have been. You never will be. All your knockout power and 10 men in that ring on the night can't beat Tyson Fury. I'm going to make you yourself. You're useless. And if I can't beat you, I'll kiss you 2 feet. You ever seen a tree fall over timber? Managers know you're not ready. Your lawyer knows you're not ready.
I have tremendous admiration for that guy, and I'm still going to admire him after he gets knocked out on December 1.
Have you ever looked into a killer's eyes before, Tyson?
Yes, I have. And I'm looking at a pussycat, not a killer.
They're very commented.
I've looked at plenty of killers,
very commented.
Plenty of them. And they don't look like you.
A
big hollow shell in a 6'7" frame. And when he gets one big hook up the body and one over the top, it'll crumble like an old dosser in the middle of the ring. And I'll look over him and say, I told y'all, I am the greatest. Let's have a little tickle, come on. Let me feel this power on the Alabama Slammer. Hey. Come on, get up.
Are you serious?
Let's have a little body spark. Come on, I want to feel it.
Hey, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Come on.
Let's go.
Come on, then.
Let's go.
No, Frank, I want to feel that power.
I'm going to show you the fool.
I want to feel the power.
I'm going to show you the fool.
You're going to feel the fury. You're not going to feel no power.
I'm going to show you. Come on. Come on. I'm going to show you the fool.
Come on.
I'm going to show you.
The white push is harder than that, you little.
I'm gonna show you the.
Come on.
They can't click that button to see it come December 1st.
You think it's a game, do you?
Because if I hit you right now,
I'm gonna punch your face in. I smell. Is that you, D?
That's on your top
I
lip.
smell.
see it. Not only you see it in my eyes, but you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it.
I feel his heart.
I know you do.
Scared of you. We're done with it. It's too late now, boy.
Don't convince yourself. Don't convince yourself of how I feel, because I know how I feel. You got 2 months to think about it.
So my favourite part of that whole thing was Paul Dempsey standing in the middle looking like a disappointed parent, sort of. He didn't know what to make of the whole thing, and he was around for the Nassim Hamed days, and even he was like...
He was the face of boxing growing up for me.
Yeah.
I loved the bit at the end where Tyson Fury is searching Deontay Wilder for a body spar. You know, be kind of like that scene in Friends where you can't touch the face. He just body spars, like. But yeah, like I didn't read much into it because they do actually get on with each other.
Oh yeah,
it's strictly business.
They straight up do like each other.
Yeah,
yeah. There's no messing around, but they're doing a good job of selling it now. You know, as Paul Dempsey said, "All right, lads, you've made your sale. Let's calm it down."
And Lou DeBella in the middle, just like tickets on sale Wednesday.
Yeah.
So, like on all the episodes so far, we've kind of any talk around this fight, we've taken it with more than a grain of salt, whether it's actually going to happen.
Do you still think it'll happen?
I'm kind of the more they're promoting it, the more you have to sort of buy in. But
yeah, I saw this with Fury and Hay.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah. No, I hope it does happen. I want to see it.
But amidst all the nonsense, I thought there were a couple of good lines from Wilder. He said, "You better call Peter. You better call Peter." And I thought that was some good mind games amidst all the bravado and like nonsense. That was a good, like Ben Davison, who's done wonders to lose. It must be upwards of 100 pounds now on Fury anyway. But he's a personal trainer, really. Like his tactical acumen, like he's never trained at this top level, let alone or any level as such. He's only 27, so like Peter Fury, you kind of need to be on the blower if Fury's any chance in this fight.
Is there any sign of it happening then?
Well, apparently Fury's going to Big Bear for this whole camp, so he's flying to Los Angeles this week and then not going anywhere. He's staying out there for the duration, so I don't think Peter Fury will be making that trek with Hughie's fight coming up. So
yeah, that'll be then obviously like the way you're thinking the fight is going to go. It's like Wilder said that he just needs to land one punch. So you've got like the Matador against the Bull, and if the Matador just makes one mistake, he'll get ravaged by the Bull.
Yeah, he said to Declan Taylor that Fury has to be perfect for the whole fight. I only have to be perfect for 1 second, which just, like, that should be on the poster. That sums the whole thing up. What's your feeling on that fight, Simon? It's 8 weeks out, but what are you thinking at the moment?
Of the heavyweight triumvirate, I'm going right now, Fury to beat Wilder, Wilder to beat Joshua, Joshua to beat Fury. That's why I see it going.
That's boxing maths right there. See, as you say there, it doesn't really work in the sense that if one fighter beats one guy, he's not going to beat everybody. It's just style to make fights, which is the oldest cliche in boxing, but it's very much true. Like skills-wise, there's no comparison. If the Fury that fought Klitschko turns up, he should be more than enough for Wilder. But as our friend Paulie, who was on the show recently, said, does that Fury even exist anymore?
Yeah, there's a good chance it doesn't. I would imagine Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua are praying that Wilder wins.
Yeah.
Because if Fury wins, there's going to be a lot of stumbling blocks for Fury and Joshua, even in terms of TV.
Yeah.
You know, Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren trying to promote it.
Yeah, it scuppers everything. Like, we touched on that. If Fury wins, Wilder will get an automatic rematch clause because this is a voluntary defence. So that it kicks the can well down the road. And short of Dillian White, there's not a whole lot of top operators left. Luis Ortiz, maybe?
Miller.
Gerald Miller, yeah, who's fighting this weekend.
Yeah, and, you know, Eddie Hearn has him for a reason.
Yeah. I suppose, like, Joshua's yet to dip his toe in the American water, so that would be Gerald can certainly talk, so it would be a good event maybe in Brooklyn or something. Let's see if it happens. But
he'd show it. HBO, anyway.
That's very true, actually. So, yeah, that fight's kind of the Showtime showpiece for the end of the year. ESPN very much in play as well. Lomachenko and Crawford among those in action before year's end. Eddie Hearn's DAZN, as we mentioned there, make their splash this weekend with their first domestic show. That's in Chicago. And Fox have also made big overtures. They've sort of taken their UFC money and played it into boxing. With all this new blood, though, HBO's Peter Nelson has taken the altogether different tack of foregoing boxing altogether. The 37-year-old ending a dynasty 45 years in the making.
Frederick being battered and Foreman vicious body shots by Getty. Ward nods as if to say, come on, come on, come on, let's fight. We showed up in Carson for a boxing match, and the war has broken out. Oh my God! Look at this! Look at this! It's a street fight in Las Vegas. What a show!
You're blowing it now, son. You're blowing it.
You're gonna cry tomorrow because of that. Do you want to cry tomorrow?
You got a dead man in front of you, and you still do this. Just let this shit go.
You gotta put this guy on his ass.
Avoid the fucking pain. Ignore the pain in here.
In and out, box this guy and have some fun.
We love you, and not just me.
You own him, son.
I know you fucking love this. Let's go.
It's sensational. One punch knockout.
Unbelievable! Unbelievable! It happened! It happened! Oh! Right hand with Rockman on the floor right next to me. And Cootie took a good right hand from Holtz. He staggers and is down. Perfect in a heap of trouble. And we have a new era in boxing. It's over. Lennox Lewis got revenge. That is that. That is the most spectacular one-punch shot of Manny Pacquiao's incredible career. What an uppercut by Douglas. Down goes Tyson. Mike Tyson has been knocked out. Unbelievable. And somebody in a parachute has just landed on the edge of the ring. The fight has been brought to a halt. And now there's a fight in the ring that's been started by some of Bo's handlers, and somebody's going to get hurt in there. Somebody's going to get hurt. There it is. Cossack Thunder. He's been knocked out by a bloody Juan Manuel Marquez. Oscar De La Hoya has the most satisfying, the most emotional win of his whole career. Only they know. Only they can touch it. Only they can feel it. This is what we came for. This is called getting your money's worth.
There you have it, just a sample of 45 years of history there. Basically defined the sport for a lifetime, really. Most of my memories of HBO are sort of retrospective. Obviously, without the advent of YouTube, I only got to watch but most of them back. And I've probably seen most of the major fights at this stage. My earliest memories in a contemporary sense were Hatton Mayweather, the 24/7 series. I think Sky Sports were showing it at the time, and it was just like, for all the great drama HBO has done down the years with The Sopranos and even Game of Thrones and stuff, like that was just peak theatre, wasn't it?
Yeah, 24/7 is something I'm going to miss. Like, and it's a recent enough thing in terms of, like, what is it, 10 years?
That was, I think De La Hoya Mayweather was the first one.
It was, yeah. 2007.
So 11 years, but yeah, it was just brilliant. Like, just the theatre around it, the narration, everything. Just perfect thing to watch in the build-up to a fight, where it just gets you in the mood. Even thinking back to Canelo and Triple G, that's exactly what I did on the Friday night before the fight. I hadn't seen them and I watched them, and I was like, I can't wait for the fight now.
Like, HBO sort of sparked the whole transition in the sport of boxing, like the ringside score, Harold Letterman. There's some great montages of Harold Letterman, you should check those out. But like the idea of scoring fights in play, you know, that was a HBO invention, or they certainly brought it to the forefront. You know, the 24/7 series, as we mentioned there. So like, they will be missed, and it's just kind of a sign of the times that HBO, Showtime, who are their direct rival, are saying they're going all in on boxing. Al Heyman's doubling down, and HBO have sort of said, no, we're going to leave it. So it's not a reflection on boxing as such, because it's probably a healthier state than it's ever been. Investment in America is off the charts. So it's just, HBO will be missed from a personnel standpoint more.
As you said, it's not like we're still going to see the fights. It's actually easier to see fights now than it ever has been. And they're on so many different channels now. I mean, you think even last Friday, obviously, it was on ITV box office. We've got Sky box office. We've got BT box office. So DAZN is now, like, even the way the DAZN deal is over in America, like, it's huge money you have to pay for pay-per-view for HBO. But I was only thinking about this, that if you're watching big fights in the US, they're obviously going to be prime time. That is like if you're paying $80 or $90, what you have to do there is just basically make an event out of it in your house or someone, like you get a group of mates over and you all chip in. That's what we used to do when we were teenagers watching Sky Box Office, say Nassim. I remember Nassim and Tom Boom Boom Johnson were fighting, and I used to say to my dad, I was like, I want to get the fight in. I'm not getting it in. But if you want to pay for it yourself, you can get it in. So I used to get the lads around and £2 each or whatever, and I'd hand the money over. But my dad would still sit there and watch it. I was like, you didn't pay for the fight. But that's how we did it. So maybe that was the only way. If I was living in America, $80 a pop is a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas the Zone has come in now when it's, what, £10 a month?
Yeah, and like that's the new paradigm of boxing, that ESPN are showing Lomachenko and Crawford fights for the most part on their regular channel. So it's not as if people are forking out big money for these fights. So HBO are thinking, I think you made the point to me recently, that the Andre the Giant documentary, which blew up for them, cost a tenth of the money, or like a fraction. Well,
I've seen a bit of it. I just started watching it and then something happened, I can't remember, but it's meant to be very good.
Yeah, so from Peter Nelson's point of view, he's kind of the villain of the piece here, but he's saying that it's not driving subscriptions the way it used to. Like, it used to be, if you wanted to see Sugar Ray Leonard or Floyd Mayweather or De La Hoya, you had to be a HBO subscriber, but it's not the case anymore because GGG and Canelo are basically freelancers at this point.
Well, that's it. They don't. I think the figures I saw of the subscriptions, 2% were for boxing. So, I mean, when you say it's put like that, you can understand why they've got rid of it. But it really is just from a nostalgic point of view and from a personnel point of view. Like, I always loved Larry Merchant's interviews in the ring after. Obviously, Larry's gone. They got rid of him. But you kind of miss those. But even when you watch certain films, like you've seen The Fighter, and obviously it's Mickey Ward, but Larry Merchant's commentary is used in it. And I find when I watch these fights or these films, I go back then and I watch the fight footage, and all of it is HBO.
No, they're absolutely
great. Yeah, no, I was looking back at a few of them there. Gatti Ward. What do you need to say about that? The Pacquiao Marquez 4 fights, and the De La Hoya Mayweather, of course, that we mentioned earlier. They were all huge productions, and they were all worthy of being pay-per-view events. I think maybe the American market, not every fight has to be a pay-per-view fight. There's been some absolute duds out there which people have kind of been sold. You look at
same over here though.
Yeah, well, you look at like Mayweather Guerrero. I know that was on Showtime. It was the first of the 6-fight Showtime deal. But Mayweather Guerrero, that's not a pay-per-view fight. Or Pacquiao Joshua Clottey. Those were pay-per-view fights. And then it's like kind of boxing has kind of fell in on itself a little bit. Now it's rebranding and restructuring. And like even with De La Hoya, when they signed Canelo for HBO, he said, every now and again we'll have one fight on regular. And that never transpired. So people can only pay for so much.
Yeah.
And like it should be the premium fights are pay-per-view, not just any old fight.
Yeah. Well, like Jim Lampley, who wouldn't be everybody's cup of tea necessarily, but like he's the voice of a generation, really. Like if you watch, as you mentioned there, all those films down the years and fights, he's some defining lines and stuff. So we probably can't do it total justice today. We'll have to do a full episode once. I think Jacobs Derevchenko is going to be their last sort of big splash in the boxing world. So we'll do something. We'll do something big around then. But once Andy's in, Andy obviously won his world title on HBO, so he'll always have that memory. But
and then of course you have the Golovkin and Canelo are now free agents.
Yeah,
like, I'm surprised they turned down. They didn't finish up with that. That would have been a way we'll go out with a bang. I'm surprised they're just gone out with a whimper.
I think Golovkin wants to basically just
fight by fight.
Yeah, which is a sensible thing. He can probably pick.
Yeah, he's still arguably the best middleweight in the world, but you don't want him to go into Pacquiao territory and just start chasing the money around different countries. But hopefully he can nail down some sort of solid base. But
Canelo's still going to be fighting in Vegas.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up now, because he had sort of acrimonious split with Showtime, and I can't see him going to the Zone. So maybe De La Hoya will set up his own platform, or they'll end up on ESPN. Like, it's going to be interesting times. So just to give you a pointer towards this weekend, there's a few fights on that are non-Conor McGregor. We might get Simon's thoughts on McGregor before we leave here, but in Belfast on Friday we have Declan Geraghty against Marco McCullough, Tyrone McCullough against Josh Kennedy, and Paddy Gallagher against Jay Byrne. Leicester on Saturday are hosting Jack Catterall against O'Hara Davis, the ever entertaining O'Hara Davis. Nicola Adams is also in action in that card, and Daniel Dubois, who'll be hoping to crash the heavyweight scene in the next 12 months or so, is also in action. And then that DAZN card, which we mentioned, Jesse Vargas takes on Thomas Delorme, Artur Beterbiev against Callum Johnson, where Joe Gallagher will be hoping to add another world title to his stable. Danny Roman against Gavin McDonnell, and our friend Gerald Miller takes on Thomas Adamek as well on that card. So it's not just McGregor this weekend.
Fair to mention Joe Joyce as well.
Joe Joyce is in action?
No, he was in action.
Oh, sorry, Joe Joyce last weekend.
Yeah.
What did you make of Joe?
I haven't seen as much of him. I obviously watched him when he was on Dave. Obviously, David Hay was getting them airtime with Dave. Certainly looks like a talent. I know he came up in conversation when we were talking about heavyweights.
Yeah.
So
he's been fast tracked a little bit. Like even from his debut fights, you know, David Hay's sort of thrown him in the deep end.
Yeah.
He's also had a bit of a managerial shake-up, so it's going to be interesting to see. Don't know if the Americans are necessarily going to take to Joe Joyce. He's not the most all-action operator, but definitely one to look out for. He's got all the pedigree in the world, so let's see how that turns out. Might just get a word of McGregor. Simon, are you feeling the hype?
Yeah.
You all set?
Well, the beautiful thing about this card is, before you even get to the main event, there's a super fight between Anthony Pettis and Tony Ferguson in the co-main event. That is going to be fireworks. I mean, by the time that fight finishes, people will still be going, we still have the main event to come. I actually think people are going to forget about the main event while that Ferguson-Pettis fight is on. That's how good it's going to be.
What time is the main event starting now, do we think?
We're looking at 5:30. I'll be setting the alarm for about 4 o'clock anyway.
Yeah, okay. I'll record it, but I'll get up definitely to watch it.
Keep the phone off, that kind of deal?
No, I'll get up and watch it live.
Oh, will you?
But what I'll do is I'll go to bed and then get up, because UFC always tends to start that bit later.
Well, don't have a Peppa Pig sort of mishap here. Like, make sure we record the whatever's on after it. The UFC post-fight show. The
interesting thing about the Khabib is this week, all the interviews he's been doing, his face has been very banged up. You know, I don't think I've ever seen a fighter gone into a main event with as much damage on the face. So, and like you can't put that there. Like, that's not there by mistake. He's been getting cracked a lot in sparring, and I think Conor's going to win in the round.
Mystic Mag, he's going for it again.
Yeah, it's either going to go like an early stoppage from McGregor, or maybe second or third round stoppage from Khabib.
I don't think it's.
But I would lean towards. I'd agree with you. The McGregor knockout seems more.
I don't think Khabib's going to touch him. I think McGregor is too slick on his feet, and you know, you look at how Khabib jumps in. I mean, look at the Aldo, look at Alvarez. You know, he kind of just going to smile. I think it's going to be an uppercut. It's going to do him this time.
It's calling punches, not even.
I think it's going to be an uppercut that's going to catch
left
Khabib.
Hand?
Would have to be left hand, yeah. Catch Khabib coming in, and that's going to be the end of it.
Is there nothing to be said for ring rust or octagon rust? He's been out of the heat of fire for so long at this stage. Do you think that's going to play a part? No,
he really wants to beat this guy and to finish him after the incident with Artem in Brooklyn, and then the bus thing, and then he's been doing a lot of talking. Of course, they both have, but I think this is personal for him. He really wants to put the first loss on this guy's record, and it'll kind of cement his legacy as possibly one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time, which is a lot of credit he doesn't get across the board, but he's now in that territory.
Yeah, and one thing's for certain, there's no absence of bravery coming back and taking on the most feared fighter in the UFC in your first fight back, so hats off to McGregor for that, at least. That's our lot for this week. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Simon. Be sure to keep an eye out over at offtheball.com for all your build-up to Khabib versus McGregor. For now, though, that's all from us. Good luck.